My guest today is a father, business owner, volunteer, and equity advocate. I like that. He is the CEO for his own company, SEO Vision, specializing in digital marketing throughout the Lower Mainland, Canada, and internationally. He's a longtime volunteer and co-chair with Chilliwack Healthier Communities, involved with the Chilliwack Food Council, Chilliwack Restorative Justice, Chilliwackian District Seniors Resource Society, Feed the Children Chilliwack, and the Chilliwack Starfish Program. He was elected in 2018 and serves as board chair of the School Board 33. Joining me today is Jared Mumford, and this is Point of View. How can you go wrong with that? Like, how could anyone go wrong voting for you?
That was a good job. That was a long list.
Yeah, and that was fun. We, did a little bit together, and in the last campaign, so it was great getting to know you. And
likewise.
And you're out there, right? So if I was a voter, I would say, okay, you've paid your dues. You've done that. So what do you think? What can Jared Mumford? Well, first of all, what has Jared Mumford learned from the time he spent on the school board?
Well, I've learned a lot. There have been a lot of challenges, and there's been a lot of areas for growth. Before I joined the board, I had a lot of big ideas, and I think the biggest thing that I learned was you have to sit in the seat to understand why the decisions that are being made are being made. So you have some big ideas, and then you get in there and you get on the seat, and then you realize, this is why I can't do this, or this is why this is taking a lot longer than I thought it would. And that's when you kind of learn to be patient and learn to govern a little bit more and not get into the weeds, but just kind of make the strategic plan and the vision, and trust on your staff to continue to track their way towards those goals. So that's the biggest thing that I learned on the board, I think.
Yeah, excellent. So now that experience you're going to transfer into City Council. What are some of your hopes and dreams? Or is there something, is it just a chair you sit in and vote? Or are you really passionate about some of the things you'd like to bring to the table?
Well, that's a good question. It's a little bit of both, to be honest. Sitting in the chair, I think it's important for someone who's in governance to have their finger on the pulse of the community. First of all, you need to understand your community. You need to be out there doing the work and just understanding what's going on. And then you also need experience, kind of as I was foreshadowing in the last conversation, we need to have governance experience. Mm-hmm. So when we find good councillors or good trustees or good mayors, I think that they need to have a lot of both. And I think that that's important. And, someone's character, they're representing the city, right? They're representing the city, they're representing the constituents. So someone's character is really important. So when I vote, the experience in the community and the experience in governance actually plays a big part in who I vote for, and their character, of course. But I am passionate about a few things. Yeah. If you want to get into that.
Sure. Let's roll right into it. I like it because this is your opportunity, right? Like if you're an incumbent, you've kind of played the game, and I always think that you have to be hungry in any election. Mm-hmm. And so that's sometimes when you see that turnover is because some of those candidates, they're not hungry and they're not passionate about issues that are going to bring people to the polls.
That's fair.
What's going to bring people to the polls to vote for Jared?
Well, I'm hoping my experience in governance and that I have paid my dues, as you said, plays a big part in that. But I do have some passions. One of them, obviously, I think most people know food security is a huge passion of mine, and that was kind of born out of being the co-chair of Chilliwack Healthier Communities. You see a lot of those social issues, and food security was one of those ones that just, I grew up with food insecurity, and like many of us did. And it became a real passion of mine. It tied into my role as a trustee really well, because kids that aren't fed can't learn, that kind of thing. And it's really expanded my work with the Chilliwack Community Food Hub, for example, or the downtown market, starting that market with some great folks, has really expanded that passion. Like there are ways that we can get local food into the bodies of our local community, healthy food, and educate people on healthy food, and we can change the way that we distribute and produce food in a way that is more beneficial to our own community. And as an aside, it's really given me a respect for the local farms. I mean, I grew up here. Ancestrally, we have farmers in our background, but I didn't have a farm, and I didn't grow up on a farm, and they were kind of incidental growing up. It's a farm, right? But now I see the importance of the farms. It's super important.
Oh, for sure. You hear a lot about community gardens. You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
are we going to see something like that open up? And
We already are seeing that, yeah.
yeah, and I think it's something the community does, and they build together. So you know, that's a win-win.
It's a win-win, yeah.
Yeah, and the Starfish program. So you're part of that, and that's feeding kids on weekends when maybe they're not getting nourishing meals in school. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I haven't been involved in the last couple of months for technical reasons, but I became really involved in that program during COVID because we were sending basically hampers of food with kids through their schools, but then kids weren't going to school. And there was this logistics issue of how do we get them the food? And literally we ended up, going to a warehouse, loading up trucks and cars and actually driving to their homes and bringing them food. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of, there was a counselor named Bernie Cross years ago.
Yes.
And you and I had a conversation earlier in the week about, and I'm looking for a candidate like that who's like passionate about an issue. And Bernie was passionate about, we had Park Home closing at that time.
Right.
And he was there for seniors, you know.
Yeah.
And I just want to see an advocate or somebody who's going to say, you know what, I'll take that on.
Yeah, Bernie Cross was an amazing counselor for sure. As I mentioned to you earlier, I did know Bernie when I was young. He was actually the first politician I ever met in person. He would drop by the house now and then, and if you remember, he would put his hand on his hat and step under the doorway because he was like 8 feet tall or something. That guy, and I don't remember much about him because I was quite young, but I remember he played an instrument. He'd play in the living room, and I really enjoyed that. He's just a great individual. So it's kind of it's a coincidence that we're talking about him and that I met him when I was young. He was the first politician.
Yeah, I think that's it, right? You're always looking for, who are you going to like emulate? Like who was doing the really good work and where did that person go? Because usually, there is succession where other people take up those causes and sometimes they don't, when there's a change of government. So we lose a little bit of those issues. And your family, too, is very involved in this community. I know your mom. I was on Chilliwack Healthier Communities for quite some time. So, we did a little bit of work together. And you know what, that is a great organization. And so speak a little bit maybe about your family's involvement in Chilliwack and those social issues that are out there.
Sure, yeah. My mother's been involved in social issues for forever. She was an alternate counselor at Chance, I believe, here, and then worked in community services and ended up becoming a director for Fraser Health eventually. And as you know, she's, advised our government, the municipal government and the provincial government on substance use and mental health and those kinds of things. Most of my family are involved in social issues. My oldest sister, Serene, works at PCRS, and she's a manager there. And my twin sister, Raylene, is the health director on Squaw First Nation. Oh. And she's the one that's created that free store. I don't know if you've heard about the free store on Squaw. Yeah, she's created that, and so that's going really well, and really building a sense of community there. So yeah, we're kind of a little bit all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah. So Indigenous issues don't scare you.
Oh, not at all. No, not at all.
We're all community.
We're all a community, yeah.
Get to know one another.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it's all about.
Become friends, break bread, get to know each other, and move the relationship from there, yeah. Yeah,
definitely. So, 2018, okay, so you get elected on the school board, which has been a little challenging. So you're leaving that, right? And you're bringing that experience in, which I think is a great stepping stone. Stuart McLean, I think, started that way as well. He did school board first, and then he transitioned into counselor. So where are we going? Are we going to see are we going to see federal, is that what you want? Like, what are you getting out of politics?
Well, it's the serving, right?
Yeah.
It's the serving that I'm getting out of it. And honestly, when you're involved in the community, you tend to, if you're involved in the community and then you see people making decisions for the community and you're not liking those decisions, there's only one way to change that, and that is to sit in the seat and bring your perspective and put up your hand or not put up your hand. And I think, the transition from school board to city council wasn't necessarily a stepping stone. I mean, it is a stepping stone, but that's not the intention. I may have ran again for school trustee, but just my passions have expanded. I'm involved in the Little Mountain Preservation Project, and I'm involved in the food security, and so these things are kind of outside of the lines of the school board, and it's just a good fit for me to transition to kind of, instead of making education better for our kids, just make the community better for our kids and for everyone.
Yeah, it's reasonable dialogue, right? You're bringing in reasonable dialogue, and you're talking about issues like, we know we're expanding. We know there's, infrastructure can hardly keep up with the amount of people that are moving into Chilliwack. Well, what does that look like, And, what about rail? Is that ever going to come back on the table?
Right.
I mean, how do you feel about maybe some of those bigger issues?
Well, it's funny you mentioned rail, because transportation really isn't something that I was ever interested in. But as co-chair of CHC, we have this operational strategy working group, and essentially we just create the strategic plan for CHC for the next 3 years. We get all the input from all the partner groups. And so we had a bunch of these exercises. I don't remember if you were there or not, but we've got all these tables, and everyone was doing all these reflective exercises, and we finally got to this point where we were putting stickers on a board to say what the priority was for your organization or for who you represent. And transportation was way at the top. The barriers to transportation was way at the top, and I'm assuming that's there's rising fuel costs are a reason for that. And if you've seen the cost of used cars lately, if you're in the market, don't even look right now, kind of thing. So barriers to transportation is becoming kind of a poignant issue. And so I started to dive into that with the work with that group, and we're still doing that work. And so I hope to be much well versed in a month or two when we're kind of finished all of that work and putting together the plan.
Yeah, and it's not like you're in the city council like every day, right? Like you're not, it takes a while to get your feet sort of, stuck in the muck and find out where the city's at, because
for sure,
some of the issues that you might think are important aren't going to be that way.
Right.
It's not going to be a priority for that. So as a counselor, like how are you going to push some of those things forward? Because I know I'll say the crosswalk issue and stuff, it always is like, okay, the employees recommend, or you always take these recommendations and you never really have that out and out conversation, in the public. It's usually in the back rooms. Do you think people are interested in sort of that, like that whole, where's their participation in some of those issues?
Well, I'll kind of answer the question. When I joined the school board, and I was brand new, and I learned why a lot of things weren't happening, and it was a lot of policy, and I had to learn quickly. One of the things that I was told by somebody was to not speak to staff, to not, like there's a line there, and you're not supposed to. And I did that for about a year, and then it was impossible for me to not speak to staff and figure out where they're coming from when they're making these recommendations. And I think that it served me well, because I ended up being someone who, when you talk about you're not working every day, well, on school board, I work every day. Every day I do something. I'm reading something, I'm studying, I'm sending emails, and I'm working. And I'm learning is the most important thing, because that's how you equip yourself for good governance. So, talk to staff just as much as I would talk to people on the streets. And find out why. It's not that hard to do once those barriers are broken. We're all a team, right? We need to work together.
We have to work together, and it's all about that teamwork and the people that are taking the direction from you. As long as they know why, they know the core of the person that you are and your values.
Exactly.
I think really stands up. And that's what's going to make the work easier, because we all know what that end goal is.
Exactly.
And what we're trying to achieve. And
absolutely.
it's always, I know that in Indigenous governance as well, and it can be kind of crazy, not that school board's kind of crazy or anything like that. But I was going to say, did you have a big party or something? Like, did they say we don't want you to go, and it must be a little bit of a relief to okay, turn a page and move on and refocus on back to the task at hand.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a bittersweet, right? Like I said, I would have stayed on if my passion had still rested solely on education. It just so happens that it's expanded. But no parties yet. I think with the elections looming, there's just no time. There's no bandwidth for that kind of thing. It's all hands on deck right now. But people have come and spoken to me and thanked me for my service there, and everybody that does that, I really appreciate it, because it has been a hard road. road. There's been a lot of challenges, and honestly, going through COVID and floods and all of those things affected schools too, and in a big way. It's very difficult to govern during those times, and that's where I learned most of my lessons. But it's a bit of a relief, but I'm really just jumping out of the frying pan into the fire because now I'm moving on to council, and it's a huge learning curve again.
Yeah, it is but I mean, that's what life is, right?
Absolutely.
I sold my restaurant, it was like, okay, we won all the awards. There was nothing else to win. Like you kind of get to the stage where, like, I need another challenge.
Absolutely.
Right? And, the work starts here, but it doesn't end here. Mm-hmm. You want to keep learning and keep moving and letting other people, know that you're interested. And I think that's the biggest thing that you're doing. I mean, honestly, when I read that, when you were running, and it was, I think, a Facebook post or something, and I think I did comment right away. I went, well. And I said, here we have somebody who's like, you grew up in Chilliwack.
Yep.
His family is totally entrenched in Chilliwack, working with numerous different agencies throughout, is well liked. You work with the mayor, so you have a relationship already.
Yep.
What about succession? Like, do you ever think like, okay, what am I going to leave behind? And who's there to step in my place? Because that has to be one thing. It was when I left my restaurant. I was like, well, how's it going to be? Like, I stuck around for a year and mentored. What does that look like for you?
Insofar as
what's
the
your
school
biggest
board,
fear, I guess? Yeah.
The school board?
Yeah.
Well, I won't go so far as to endorse, anybody who's running. I don't think that that's proper. But, somebody who's had 4 years experience already, that is reasonable, level-headed, understands governance, understands the rules of order, understands how to run a meeting. As long as someone like that gets to sit in the seat for at least the first year as chair, then I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. Everything you just said right there, you've just described yourself to a T.
Oh, thank you.
And it was like, okay, those gaps have to be filled. So when you do leave, it is, hoped, by anyone, that succession, that somebody will fill those gaps. What gap are you think you're going to fill in City Council? What's missing that you say, okay, they're missing a Jared Mumford? And this is what I see myself, what I can do.
Well, I don't know that they're missing.
Yeah.
That there's a missing piece, but I don't know. They may not quite be ready for my tenacity and work ethic. Like I said, if somebody tells me I can't call a staff member, that's probably the first thing I'll do. Yeah. I work every day, and I'm a problem solver. So, when you don't know how many times I've been at the board table where we've had this long discussion about an issue or pertaining to maybe there's somebody in an important role that's not there at the table, and it comes around to me, and then I say, well, I just called. Yeah. I just called that person and asked them, and here's what they told me. Yeah. So let's now restart the conversation there. So I think that my work ethic, my work allows me the flexibility to do that kind of groundwork and due diligence. And I think when I make a decision, it's not based on who I'm friends with. It's not based on biases. It's I try to be intelligent, compassionate, and fair. That's kind of what I've based my
I love it because I get into trouble all the time, and it's some people call it snooping. I call it oversight. And that's why you're elected.
Due diligence.
That's why you're elected, is because you want to, make sure that, okay, we said we're going to do this, it's moving this way, or it's not. If I find something, then I'm going to make sure that, that people know about it. And not just, tattletale, but I mean my other colleagues. And it's like, rally them to, hey, we're not getting the job done properly.
Right, absolutely.
Join me. Let's, there's another way to do it.
Yeah,
so that's progressive government.
Yeah, I agree.
Being involved.
Yeah, I'm very much a team player. So I respect every council member that we have right now. So I'd be happy to work with any one of them. Yeah. And like you said, just that's my personality, and I lead from beside. So hopefully it catches on, and I'm sure that when I get to that seat, if I'm lucky enough to get it, I'll see more about the work ethic of those councillors, and I'm sure that they're all there.
Great. I have total faith in you. I think you're
Thank you.
all the right
Appreciate
things.
it.
Yeah, it's exciting. It reminds me, I wish I was running again. I do. I do. I'm very passionate about politics, and never say never.
You have an important position.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll come back and chat a little bit more with Jared Mumford. Hello, we're back with Jared Mumford on Point of View. So, Jared, let's talk a little bit about, maybe reconciliation. Let's go right into a little bit of that, because it is possible that, they could be finding bodies off Veta Road on Coquelites as well. We know that, they are raising money and they are scanning the grounds. Do you think the city has done a good job on, where would you rate us on, how about 1 to 5? Where do you think we're at? Do you think we've done a good job?
I wouldn't say we've done a good job. I think there's been a little bit of a start. I think there's a lot more work to do. I think it's coming along a little bit slower than it does through the school board. So the school board, the school district has really taken reconciliation seriously by implementing it in their strategic planning, and I would say there's a long way to go.
Yeah. Well, I know that the province has their action plan already out. So, there's something for the school board to follow. I know at negotiating tables with BC Métis government, we can be talking about a subject and they'll go, oh, that's 3.2 or that's 4.4. So they have their plan out, and now they're really leaving it up to us to connect the dots on our needs and matching it up. Should the city of Chilliwack have an actual action plan for reconciliation?
Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely. It's not only easier for the city to follow that plan, but it's just easier for the constituents, the people that live here, to understand the plan and understand what reconciliation is, right?
Yeah. When
we see that our councillors have a plan, our mayor has a plan, and we can look at that plan and understand it, and that's just education in itself, right? So I'd say we have quite a long way to go in that.
Yeah, and it's not like it's not going on in any other parts of the city, because it is. It's been going on in the hospital with Fraser Health. Right. I sit at those tables as well, and they're progressive. They're all moving forward. But yet, when I walk into City Hall, I'm not seeing reconciliation. It's just a physical thing. Am I wrong, or?
No, you are right. Yeah, yeah. You kind of go in there and it's kind of that cold, cold white walls, and you're not seeing any of the kind of the signs, the visuals that you would see maybe going into our schools or going into the hospitals, like you mentioned. You're absolutely right. There's a long way to go. And
should that be part of the training? When you're sworn in as a councillor, and a matter of fact, all councillors, should they not be taking some sort of historical impact to actually know and to realize what the history is?
Well, honestly, Louis, I would imagine that they already are. I would imagine that they do get that training. Yeah. I know I'm speaking to some councillors, and certainly the mayor, he's definitely keen to learn. Yeah. So I wouldn't doubt that they haven't had that training. How that translates into things like the city infrastructure and stuff is it's a little bit slow. But we're seeing the Halcomalian one, the Welcome to Chilliwack coming in and things like that. So it's slowly happening, but maybe it could be going a little faster. Maybe it could be embedded into this plan a bit better. Yeah. Yeah,
and economically too. What about procurement? Right. And what about that's open? All the building, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. Why don't we see procurement in there as well?
I could answer that question if I had a seat on council.
Yeah. Those are just low-hanging fruit, I would think. Yeah. So let's get involved. Let's have some faces in there that do the work. And if we need help in indigenizing our community or our community governance, then why don't we do it?
I don't know, but there's no hesitation on my end to start that work. So, where do you think we're at? Where do you think we're at as a city?
Well, on a 1 to 5, I think we're probably on a 2.
Okay,
2.5.
That would be fair.
I'd say 2.5.
Yeah,
I'd all the lead works out there, because I'm always used to the talk. It's oh, let's have another meeting and a meeting and a meeting. Okay, but when are we going to get the decisions, right? Yeah. When is that going to happen? The river, we've had, there's a lot of issues with there too. Why can't the Stolo patrol that, right? Most of it, is their area anyway. There's, I won't speak for Stolo, but I'm just saying, we probably need to talk about that. There's other areas than just, pacifying. I'm here because I should be here, but I'm here because I really want to learn what you're doing, right? Yeah. And and I think you're going to be a champion for that. You've been around those, certainly with your sister, right? you know some of those things.
I do, yeah, and I well, growing up, we did spend a lot of time on Squeala as kids, playing there. I remember the big soccer tournaments they used to have there. I don't know if you recall. I guess you weren't in Chilliwack then, but I grew up quite a few days a week in that community. So I won't say that I understand the community, but just the cultural piece, the just understanding, like we were talking about before, like the breaking bread and just becoming friends and doing business. And when I see on Netflix, I see Indigenous humor and Indigenous comedians, and like I totally can relate to it. I understand the humor that they're passing on, and it's just having that kind of relaxed understanding that, hey, we're all here to just do this work. This isn't a contentious thing. This isn't nobody needs to be feeling guilty at this table. This table's here to do the work. And if we can do the work, then we can all just heal and we can move forward together. It's really quite simple, to be honest.
J11 was one of the policies that brought a lot of people together. It was also one of the policies that tore us apart. So where do you stand on that issue?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
You have to do the data, right?
Yeah, you have
find
to
out
like
what's.
And that's what I was alluding to before. When you get to the table, you always get more information, but we do need more data. To be honest, I'm a data guy at work, and if I'm not sure about something, it's because I don't have enough data. And I think that's really the reason why I do all that due diligence, is because I need to have the data to understand. And for J11, it's one of those things where I need to have a lot more information before I'm going to make a decision. Yeah,
that's a fair comment. It was staff recommendation again. So, I always, if something, is a duck, I call a duck, right? So, and I know that. And for me, it's, it's hurtful because, of course, I'm part of that community.
Yeah.
And I just think, everyone else is, why can't we? What's really, if it's so small and insignificant, like, are we really not going to know how to cross the street?
Well, absolutely
silly.
Right. So if I can just backtrack a bit, I mean, just being a member of Chilliwack and hearing about the crosswalk, obviously, to me I couldn't understand why there was a problem.
Yeah.
And then when you see that J11 is embedded in there, then now it becomes more of a practical policy issue, like why is it there really? What's the mechanisms to remove it? Should we remove it? And what are the consequences of removing it? Those kinds of questions are something that I'm not well versed in. As far as just painting the crosswalk, I say paint it. Let's go. I mean, honestly, we've seen every other community paint crosswalks. And then
we'll have a party.
They move on with their day. Yeah. Well, we'll have a party anyways, but. And then they move on with their day. So when I say I'm not sure, I mean from the policy side, from just painting it, just paint it.
Yeah, it just seems silly, and it's just if that's really that's going to make people happy, then if it's a small thing to do, then why not make people feel good? We're all community, right?
Right, absolutely, yeah. And I don't know that it resisting the painting of the crosswalk has had the desired effect, right? I mean, it's really just made it into a bigger thing than it is, right? Just paint it,
Yeah. One last question about just kind of policy and to do with the city. Like, what do you think has been, like, have you had a big disappointment out of anything that the city has done in this term or maybe previous terms? Is there anything that jumps out at you that say, hey, I want to be an advocate for this?
I wasn't previous municipality. I wasn't a fan of the way we were dealing with affordable housing, and there didn't really seem to be a lot of collaboration. And now with this new council, we're seeing a ton of collaboration with organizations, with the provincial government, and it's really a breath of fresh. I felt like we were kind of regurgitating the old way before, and certain organizations were kind of running the show there and getting the contracts, and I felt like. These last 4 years, this last term, it's really changed. And I've been on some of those calls with BC Housing and the city, and the collaboration is there, and they're working hard to fix the problem of affordable housing. So I think the previous disappointment is maybe magnified a bit because of the change that we're seeing now, this positive change. But that would be a previous disappointment. Yeah.
And how about healthcare and our downtown? Because that's, a reoccurring issue all the time. And so we kind of have little spots here and there taking care of things. I'm depending on you to be the data guy on all of
Right.
the city council. Hopefully you'll be successful, and to bring those stats in, because you've been around those stats, you've lived them for the last 4 years. You've seen harm reduction. You've seen negative opinions come toward homeless people where the city's trying to shelter them and they're no longer wanted in certain areas. How are you going to approach that with, and you've got a good wealth of knowledge that of the tables that you sat on.
Well,
How can you help?
Well, first of all, I'm going to rely on the knowledge of the experts that sit at all those tables. So talking to those people as I get information as a counselor, bringing that information to them and allowing them to help me disseminate that information, understand it better in a way that kind of relates to the street level. Because there's data and then there's street level, and you got to kind of meld the two. I think that the data is the most important thing. So we need to be continuously collecting data on the situation downtown. And I think it looks like it's getting worse, and in some ways it is, I guess, visually. But I think with the new projects that we're seeing on Chilliwack and Rowett and some other projects that are coming down the pipe, I can only hope that things are going to get better. I mean, it does take some time especially with the delays in COVID, this infrastructure has taken a long time to get in place. I think you were kind of referring to the portal before, and that was one of those things where we're just waiting for infrastructure and there were delays. I think that the city's plan in that regard is well. They've got the data to support what they're doing. I haven't seen the data, but I think that what they're doing is the right thing right now, and I think that we will see that problem. We'll see some healing in that area in the years to come, based on the work that they've already done now. Yeah,
perfect. So you think we're going in the right direction?
I think we're going in the right direction when it comes to the downtown. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, it certainly does look great. And I do know, like, my old restaurant, Bravo's, doing really well. They've done well through, even with the pandemic. It's a pivoting time for a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
A lot of them have struggled. Is there any relief? Is there anything the city can do to sort of maybe help some of those businesses or attract some of that? Or do you think, things are in place by doing the infrastructure that was enough?
Well, it's never too soon, right, to solve a problem like that when you're a business owner. It's not easy to be a business owner. And, as you know well enough, especially with restaurants, the margins are low.
Yeah.
And I know that Bravo did do well over the last couple of years, which was surprising to me, to be honest. But a lot of businesses aren't. So I think that the city has done the right thing for the long term. There may be more that they can do in the short term, but yeah, I do see. We can all see visually the healing that's happening downtown. Yes, there's still some homelessness and open drug use there, and that's not a problem that's going to go away in any city quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that the city's on the right track, and I think that we'll start seeing those dividends in short term, in 6 months, 8 months.
Yeah, it's all of our responsibility.
It is
as a community, right? You can't put blame in one space. It's what can we all do?
Yeah.
To make that better. And just one last question: is your family endorsing 4 more years in politics for Jared Mumford?
Yeah, I'm surprisingly, yes.
Good.
It's been a tumultuous 4 years, and they've certainly taken the brunt of it some days, of some of those challenges. But we had a family discussion, and everybody is on board. And I don't know if I told you this, but they are my campaign team. I don't have a campaign team; it's just them and my partner and my kids. And we're going for it.
Those lemonade stands, they sometimes can bring in a lot of money. So
I'll be giving you a call.
Put them to work. Yeah, sounds good. Thanks very much for being here. And I do have a little gift for you.
Thank you.
A little sash, for Louis Riel Day. So,
perfect. Thank you.
And like a little orange pin. So for
amazing.
Orange Shirt Day. That's always good, when you're in the office and working around. It's, you can't wear that orange shirt every day. And we certainly don't want to, right? We want to make sure we're taking that holiday and really doing a good service to it. So Chimiquich, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining us, and get out and vote. Get out and vote for Jared Mumford. We'll see you at the debates.
Thank you.
Thank you,
my friend. See you then. Thank you.
All right.